Soji Shuna Lai Chanju Bade Dani Josujin Dagi Jinzo Jibe Tonanjin Dola Benje Sanje Dubare Joe Sanje Chedan Soji Shuna Lai Chanju Bade Dani Josujin Dagi Jinzo Jibe Tonanjin Dola Benje Sanje Dubare Joe Sanje Chedan Soji Shuna Lai Chanju Bade Dani Josujin Dagi Jinzo Jibe Tonanjin Dola Benje Sanje Dubare Joe. 네, 안 참말라 이제 가우친 참말라 아니 삼주타시 딜레스.
Tashi delay everyone. I'm very happy to see you all here.
자, 내가 저 다르고는 이거 아니 이마 가서 저거다 다르가. 티나가 저기다. 향자 지금 남 최전이 치네. 아니 최전의 일이 줄어. 근데 인자 아니가 참에게 경정을 하다보다 생활하는 거랑 안 쓰는 보다 치네 아니 가요주니치 태블로에 나래 아니 다 수용도다 판도에 버를 조아시 땅토에디 개첨으로 됐으라.
So since you have all come here by investing your time and effort, then we are together here in this journey for 5 days together. So I would like to urge you from the start to give your best and to make the most of this time. And then when we go away from here, that there should be some sort of change or difference in us when we leave the course. Yes.
Yes, somebody can't knowledge, she chat, budget, care, give some dosra. Then that's also the pay the la mutual. So, chicken. Kashian Lapjara or the Kashian chicken, young Turo, that Suzuki chicken. 수다체로 카리네 레시라 아니 담보들에 견아종월에 아니 수수를 미루다 아니 데라 페고에 지게 디스티징 오르로다 남도 상로 체스라 아니 간도 데라 파피텔라 코란슬라 라르체 때야다.
So then before we actually start with the text itself, I would like to kind of get to know you, and I'm sure that all of you are intellectually gifted or gifted in some other ways, and I'm sure that some of you are even like more gifted than me. But then I know that all of you came here with like your own set of expectations and your own set of hopes to gain something from this course. So before we move on with the text, I would like to kind of all of you to introduce yourself and then kind of share your expectations from this course. Anybody would like to start?
Okay.
I don't feel I really have the expectation. It's just come perfectly on my way with what I needed, kind of. So maybe the one to understand more about Buddhism, to connect more deeply with it, and to receive this precious teaching.
Okay.
And transforming suffering in happiness sounds pretty good, so.
그러면 이 믹스기 레와든데 메스 이나도 단다델로 고브제들라 수수기 갱이 토글샤르 갱이 디길라 주르투와 고레라는데 디티어라 디티어다 아니 디 야보통 소스. Yes, why not?
Okay, I'm Diego from Argentina. About the course, I'm really interested in Buddhism since just a couple weeks ago, and yes, I would like to see how is this teaching. I wasn't planning to be on these teachings till a few days ago that I saw that you would give them, but I would like to understand more about Buddhism and how they see this path from suffering to happiness. because I did the Vipassana in Nepal, so everything was about this working with the misery and stuff. So I'm pretty curious. This is curious about the teaching.
Korang Argentina ni isra. Ani tanda di nima khashish ngoyla chashi mixe me ne hobde me di tanda nima nga ge ji lobjong de la zuin isra. Ani korang jirdan ne pige payula lagdong da shine de la kom je be tapshi dais. Ni tudu zaman ne tanda jushi dagarang ani kharsa dungyen ne dijila khandis ani chudap chegores. Dende ani nangshula jirdan gi ing da tonang shuk shambule sos.
Vikas from India.
Yeah.
And so the subject of the course was interesting, so converting something to happiness. So I want to understand like how does Buddhism perceive suffering? What is suffering? And there are certain questions you always have when you're doing certain good things, but still you suffer. And you perceive someone else to be maybe not a good person, but you see that person enjoying life. So why does suffering happen, and what can you do differently to convert that into happiness? And who suffers and why? Maybe if there is some insight on that from you.
Korangi di jagane isra. Ani korangi tanda jushi dipe ing sabo tongsons. Ani dunye ne dijil la khandis chogore. Ani ine korang di jushi di tongde zamba ani semna la tiwa kashi legis. Dunye la na khandiji la ngunzin chigires. Tandong ani mi jirnang ne choba nyamba dukja hamba sao dezo ani lega dukja chedine yang dunye minyongyo ro chi tonggo dos. Ani dunye nyang minyang la di sula nyanggiresra. Dunye nyang minyang di khandis la ngunzin chigire. Nangbe gi tarup ngune. Dia ini shingi dudos.
Thank you.
हिंदी में बोल सकते हैं?
Hindi na lan digres.
Just a little.
मेरा तो वही एक्सपेक्टेशन ये है कि मतलब जितना भी हम पढ़ते हैं ना बुक में या हम अपने तरफ से कोशिश करते हैं पर वो अंडरस्टैंडिंग वो जो मुझे चाहिए जो वो मिलता है अभी it's like I need a help in understanding like these things because self study and all ऐसे नहीं होता मेरा तो इसीलिए
So 이제는 신이 힘들어라.
Je, chik michi the one kogo la edera. So you're trying to say you need to receive a teaching.
yeah.
Oh, yes.
I'm Gaurav from India itself. I feel I'm living a very fast-paced life where I allow outside interactions and outside people and their actions to control a lot of things that I do, the way I live, the way I behave. So my only expectation here is to be able to develop more of patience, to step away from what's happening and be able to observe those things and move forward in life.
Korang jaga ne is. Ani korang gi chirtang gi mezi tanda keshin ba jora. Tipe jokbo dus. Dengde gi mezira. Dengde gi mezi dende jokbo chi chedu zamba chi chen mangbo yora. Mi inare, nitsu inare. Chi chen mangbo ji gi kola semnang la kare kongro la soba yora. Dende mangbo sagi dus. Ani taran de la le de zamba ani soba khandes kom gore. Dende doji. Ani soba gomba mase chimane chi chen dende doji thuna yora. Ani pige lamsang Lange majan this kola tatus dende doji ra. Dende doji ani yoangi rewa chigis.
Hi, my name is Eva. I came to do the course because I'm sort of looking for more tools and resources to manage kind of like the unsteadiness of life. Like there are so many things that are outside of our control. And I think that Buddhist teachings really help to calm the mind and give more distance for observation and to kind of like choose happier outcomes internally. So I think I'm very interested in the title of the course, and I would like to do more mind training techniques specifically to help with that. I've studied a little bit of Tibetan Buddhism before, so I've had some exposure to Buddhism like a long time ago, but not really as a practitioner. So I want to see if it can help me to practice dealing with that turbulence in life.
Kurang the lojong yune ni chuchu shunyonsra ini laglen la dende tar wanyons ini morang di da jushi jigera jushi de la ni pe ingsa bo thongedus tonang chembo is jushi de la kajana na ni jirdang mezena la dislo shi ni semba phagbe bo dende yongge mendus dene mayonza ni tanda dina la ni nganzo da laglela menga do la ora dende ni mangboji songyong gyoras sijeman la dezo ni laglen kan sta we me di shin pe de watching boys.
Hi, my name is Linda. My expectation is I want to learn more about transferring suffering and happiness and hopefully find more inner peace and inner balance with whatever happening around me.
그런 주시들 아니 배 인사부 통계 도스라 단다 아니 디마세 아니 낭 나올라 낭기 시디다 낭기 디지 데데지 칸디스 중고에메 딜라단다 라레 지제만 나라라 딘데 람든 로지 아니 토베기지를 와치기스
낭기 시디다
낭기 시디 아니 단 당념 돌아오라 밸런스
아래야 당
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wherever. From here then?
Oh. Say what? Okay. Surprise. Thank you so much for giving the course. My name is Naomi. I'm from Germany. I would hope, it would be lovely, if in the end of the course I feel I've gotten better at being with my suffering and recognizing it. But that transforming into happiness part, that is quite a rare thing for me. And I've experienced it maybe once or twice, and it was magic, and I would love to, I don't know if it's patience, and maybe it'll just one day, but if it's not patience, I'd like to learn what that is that makes the transforming suffering to happiness part.
모랑 저머니니 있으라 아니 모랑기 레와 첨보로 디 아니 걸서 단다디 니망하기 지네 타마지어라 디딜레드 좀 아니 모랑기 단다 주식이 디나라 디치도 게시마라 동년네 디기라 줄라네 치도 동년디 디기라 줄투와 아니 어디네 줄투와디다 뭐기 카보도 초게도스 얘네 동년을 문진 제도에게지 된데게지 디지 chuna ani deba kansares dinde do rewa chis the one silent mother.
My name is Kate. I'm from Australia. I would like to be exposed to some new tools for the personal transformation. I work with a lot of people who are suffering and have suffered. And I would like to have some ways to think about that.
그런 오스트레일리아는 있으라 아니 게르기 수수셈 나올로 줄주 당하기 전에 레와 축심 붙이기 위해서 아니 모랑 내가 쳐서들 미망 못배 동네 담인다 냥요 통게 두스 The next.
I'm Preeti, and I'm from Ahmedabad, Gujarat. I've come for two purposes, more than this course as well. One is to find out my purpose of life. There's a reason I've taken birth as a human, and it has to be much more than what I'm just doing. And second, I want to understand what is forgiveness, and what does it really mean when you say I forgive somebody. What does it mean to forgive somebody, and what is forgiveness?
그런 구자рат니 있어라. 네 그런데 레고에 좀 전서 어디 단다 내가 제신바 단다 메즈 도신바게지 주인들 따나 메즈를 된다 매교로지 델레네 메즈기 된다 가르래는 지 고층이 되기도스 디마세니 티와 모랑라 티와 슈침보지 있어라. 아니 스페셜 오라다 파줄라 공부 타와 치래 어딘데라나 가르래 가디 된다 가르래스라 간데스 스페셜 차고스 된데로지
Hello, my name is Carla from Nigeria. I'm very happy and honored to be here. Thank you. I'm practicing the Buddhist path for some time, and I feel that when I manage to bring it to my day-to-day life, it's really amazing, but sometimes I get lost and I lose my path, and then I find that coming to courses like this really helps me to go back to practice. So I really hope that being here for these 5 days can help me to find my center again. And also the topic of the course is very relevant to my life right now, and I really hope to meet it not from an intellectual point of view, but to let it sink to the heart and be personal.
그런 게 뭐네 나중에 냠래는 럽종로 테스 체뇽스 에 나중에 냠는 지대서 먹는 아니 데부 할래는데 통계도스라 소소 유라 이네 참자면 람발라교도 차기도스 아니 제자니 딘데도다 니망아스 딘데 수 딘데 럽종 체 고가라도서 뭐 아니 양의 랑자 람가 말라에 차야 된대라
남치 제가 말은 라도로
말에 참참 남 지르나 나중에 냠는 지대서 뭐 데부 야고 통계도스 이네 참자면이 람갈라교도 차기도스 가전에는 나중에도 디칼라기 자마라 토나시라 체마라 딘디신 또 단다 델레드 좀 니망아 자야 고가 베드 좀 바니
자종도 지르시
자종 아니 람가 말라야기지 니 슈긴 슈크션 못했어스 Is there anyone left? No? No? 상마 딕스
Thank you, Tushana. Konsamala mutache. Tadi tanang azu di kanzala ya tiwale di karalana. Kanzu tharung gujila lere ani susu ndosun tang tisu tang ani chikale jamle ra. Ledi gala ani tang azu gi tisu chuzu mazu kanzu ndaba kangura. Tinde inza tambo mi ndaba ti shen keshimura. Tinde inza andi chinang azu gi ta tiwa tiede inde insra. Tinde inza ani azu tiwa re nge tanda to t-shirt dinge dashi anja Sani das dari matsagi mara sani nama jagura dari jadi gal ani parts la yang michi gi twala samala pendo yo tinde zo yesra.
So thank you very much for sharing your expectations, and so the reason why before we study the text I wanted to ask and know your wishes and expectations is because since you have invested money, time and effort to come here to study this text and to be in this course, then I find it very important to kind of know your wishes and expectations from the text. And another reason why I ask this is because since we are all same as human beings, as we study the text, then as the days goes on, I hope to address the expectations that you have shared with me right now as we study the text. And another benefit of sharing this kind of expectations is in the manner that we study the text. If someone is able to share their expectations and that expectation is addressed when we are studying the text, then it has the kind of effect of benefiting everyone, because we are studying together at this moment. Lassa.
Today 아니 다당한 조다 직디 추사 고유대 가고 있는 거야 보여라 있는 단다 그런 지지는 먼저 하고 이제레디 아 공부디 샤다 오늘 거좀 아니 잠무슨 이제 그런 할린라 아니 그런 있는데 지난이 마셔다는 지 자가다 시제다 근데 치 수수르르다 근데 인자다 집 대사의 고유나 야타시요래 아니 지 조사단도 조사마 전제 야타시요라 디는 저기 치수마다 하시는 거라 삼익견 정도래 데블로에네 리소스상다에네 트와티에네 가요주시에데 계시므르스라 지난 이만가 나올라 참마 신래데 칼카보레스 이네 예수주 딜라만 저기 칸바데 마소나 다칼로 지덴도 샤토엔 안젤 틱친담을 퇴주디가 나는 수수글을 제 템담을 로나 아니 마음바 아니 렐하 체레스라.
So then, another thing that I want to talk to you about is the environment that we are in right now in this institution. This institution was established by Annie Sangmo, who's from Netherlands, and she specifically established this institution to help international Buddhist nuns and lay people. Since you are in this very conducive and peaceful and calm environment in this institution, I really encourage you to make the most of your time here. Use your time to kind of contemplate, use your time to kind of question things. And then, even though we only have 5 days together to study the text, since in 5 days it's almost impossible to cover like all the topics that's kind of hidden in this text, but then it would be like laying a good foundation for yourself. So if you kind of use the example of a house, a good foundation serves good foundation means that you can kind of like put more bricks on top of it. And so treat it in this manner when you approach the course.
디 공부디 미라 호나 담보 터삼닝이라 딜 가르치다게 딜 이마 공사초에네 페뉴레 데마이게 라마마 보치 페뉴라 다니 페진디 첸 공부기 첸디 미디어 아니 공사초는 주체 아니 터삼닝레데 가라나 저 터버쳐라 삼말레디 딜 아니 치킨 삼모양데 양 땅이로 딘데기 링레디 딘데기 르르치서 코유질레는 노트서 민 코란을 따네 이용어 토버르지 요라 가랑 나라이네 딘 공부디 냐라 나라데 마용이라 가이마 도만을 되고라 디디갈 디 미드 콘데네 베 수르기 친 햄부르스더라 인터니.
So then, when we even talk about the name of this institution that we are in right now, Tösam Ling, and the name was given to this institute by His Holiness the Dalai Lama when he visited Tösam Ling. And when we talk about the name itself, before I joined here as a teacher, I used to stay in Domaling, which is another nunnery. And when I heard the name Tösam Ling, then it kind of appealed to me because the meaning behind the name Tösam Ling is to hear the Dharma. And then Sam is to contemplate on the Dharma. And Ling is a land or a place. So a place to hear and contemplate on the Dharma. So I really urge you to make the most of the calm environment and good environment that you are in for the next 5 days. So I asked all of you to introduce yourself, but I totally forgot to introduce myself to you.
아니 니네 아니 다오도만다 예스라 내가 펜슬이 주진스 아니 나랑 레븐 때어디 아니 도모닝데 치와이 아니 디마이바야 디파로라 워나스다 그저 아마도 자가케반 냠다 힌디도 드네 장아라 순스라 디네 추유네 아니 게히마기 주테도 네 하타타 차상아데 니도 쭈글로라 아니 차상차 차와진스라 나랑 미유도네 다 수수 미스나마 로망보치 갈리제비리 캬란들 파 펜토토네 하라인데 와디라 jam고로미체 가자가니 먼저 니차 지카지라서 다가랑 디산난줄로 동안친이다 근데 mambuligoran to samala soso kanyu chu chegure sonsra tinde insa ne soso tindagi ngarai chidi judi la soso tando shujjanira chegusai konuyu ani samala chan samala ngarai konu namba tabaiji kampenchi ben chege ami yusra.
So then my name is Dawa Dolma and I am from Tibet. And I did my main Buddhist monastic education from Dolmaling, which is a nunnery nearby here. And after Dolmaling, I also had the opportunity to study with like Indian masters in Varanasi to study the Hindi language as well. And then in 2019, I was able to complete my Geshema degree, which is the highest degree that is available in the Tibetan Buddhist monastic education, which is almost equivalent to a PhD in the modern sense of the word. And then I also completed my study of the Tantra. And in all my in all my years of study, last time when I had an audience recently with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, then he advised us in the group as Geshemas to kind of use this like years of experience of monastic education and practice to help other people and to kind of teach other people. So with this advice from the Dalai Lama, my resolve and my intention is all the more stronger, and and my resolve is all the more stronger, and my intention is now like blessed with this instruction from the Dalai Lama. So I really hope to give my best in this 5-day course that we have together.
근데 인자 당아주 참에 이르와 안 결혼증을 뒤서 단조야 버체 나라서 참에 하루버루 체데 백해점으로라.
So I would also like to stress that I want you to be active participants in this course. So I want you also to give your best when you take part in this course.
니마이나 데라로 좀 몰래서 코스 삼베 칼로 니마 딱빠치를 따서는 가디네 좀 무로 되다. 근데 내가 저 교도 다 파길치 팬비 전화lên 베 스스로서 맞지고 아니 파길라 그런저기 리베 딜레야들 아니 고는 두가들 말아 베가오 도스라 아니 찬제 엔데치 유메그레와 예스.
So last time we had another course just like this, and then the participants in that course, they were very active, and they were very like active participants, and not just one day, like every class they were attentive, they were asking questions. So I really and then when you have such a active participant, then from our side, from my side too, I feel like a great satisfaction in giving teachings. So I really urge you to be active participants in this course.
아니 간주 다다리 간주 조디 간주 취래라 취래들 시간이 간주 베베스 취래 그다음에 다시 뭐부더라 네 취래들 간주 생 마rum바디 판조와 땅에 야부치라 판조와 땅에 지고더라 아직니야 짐발라디가라 직 다딜라 히잖아 마모도 레제기 톤로시나 직 간주 코아다니 솔마 사와래야 짐바 데지라 간주 취래네 지고더라.
So then now since we are studying a Buddhist text, then I think it is kind of important to establish what do you mean by the Buddha Dharma? When you hear the term Dharma, what does it mean? So in the Tibetan translation of the word Dharma, it's translated as Chö, and this has the connotation of transformation. So what does it mean? What does this transformation mean? So this transformation means to transform your negative qualities of the mind into positive qualities of the mind. And then not just this definition of the word Dharma. There are a lot of different interpretations of the word Dharma. And then if we kind of look at the Sanskrit word itself, Dharma, then it has this connotation of stopping one from falling in samsara.
당아저 지단 잠리가나 취루 뭐라 이슈 같이 힌두 아니 디요 다 취루다 바실레로다 뭐부터 라 취루 거리네 마이나 아주 취스니디 지금 밀 팬비 랍자시라 지금 마마고 잡아마저 좀 마실레 마치 취루 처음으로 좀랍 지게 레전 기퍼로 차도라 근데 인자 아니 취루 거리네 이 간절라 지 팬토에 랍자시티나 우리 간절 량으로 파출루레 출루라 가가체므로 출루 삼마치당에 아주 템부조고에 계신 분이 차고래 디나로로 출루 가리나 레차들 랭고에 베키체므로.
So then another thing that I want to talk about is like generally when we talk about religion, there is this tendency to kind of say this is my religion, this is your religion. But then when we kind of look at the different religions of the world, it is very important to accept and know that all of these religions, in the end, at the core of their teachings, have the same advice. That is to bring some benefit to others. This is the core advice of all religions. So we need to accept this core commonality or core advice of all the religions. That's it.
당한주기 추나로라 가르송 레차스도와 등한주가 라린 단량 거라면시 딩이 추레 디코추레 디갈라 투바제 되는데 맞지 추딩 거 하마고야로 추루나로 야고치골레는 소요레 디갈라 가지고 카리나 수수들 냠네 체라네 단도고에 디케체머라.
So rather than just like fighting among ourselves, saying like you are from this religion or I'm from this religion, it is important to accept this same core advice and then to pick up like the good advices that all these religions offers us, rather than fighting about the difference in the difference in religion.
먼저 추엘레리가 지난 가신지네 그거본데 고래 가지 먼저 레다라 된도 고래 가른 되면라 마테페 먼저기 추엘레디 먼저 추치치부지나 미기 삼바담느라 라 추치부지나 리만 힌두 치부지나 같이 치부지나 뭐예요 가서는 미기 삼바담느라 먼저 데미 지정 가리게 와이나 디미 데리라 삼바담담들이라 근데 이제 디나시기 추디조기도 다소소야 같이 추기 소소 드드니다 같이 님 가서 힌두 추기 드드로 선담느라 그냥 잠니가라야 아주 리드 초와라 아니 칼랄 때오라 칼라디에 제치부 디고만 조치부 디고만 담을 사고다 아주 쥐 담을 거다 디나시기 캐나디 칼라디 야시르는 아주 찔러도 말아 가서 추디에 다가나시 디 야시르는 찔러도 말아 소소소기 삼노탄탄다 딘들 빠비기 아니
So then when we kind of focus on the difference in the religions or difference in our religion, then of course there are differences because there are theistic religions, non-theistic religions. Some religions accept karma, some religions do not accept karma, but these are differences on the surface level. And so then and it is pointless to argue over the differences to kind of assert your like superiority over some other religion, because it's kind of it's a very stupid stance to take, because everyone is blessed with like different predisposition. Everyone is different in the way they think. So like one religion would not work for everyone. Even when we kind of think about the food we eat, we cannot just survive on one type of food. Just if we just eat rice, it will not be enough for us. We need to take like a sort of like a variegated diet to kind of survive. So likewise, one religion for whole human race is kind of a very stupid idea. We need to kind of know the value of this difference in religion, because we are all independent and we all have like different ways of thinking.
그래서 근데 한쪽에 추일 단념의 친구들이라 아니 소소에 들레레 체크하는 건 삼매기 들 냠네 체다 계셔므로 라마 칸데가 타드마 동나 가르라나 먼저 참만 미 버치버체 창막이 대원되고래 동해면도 왜 버치잖아 창막이 대원을 이내 쇼게니 군다보는 것도 주대디 대화치 제고 이내 안 잠잠 대화도 제다 마히냐 먼저 자와지 대원되제 팀무베 동해니는 거 버주스라 이내 대화되고래 대화 제다 마힌 디버를 투바자로다다 서서로 요거라 내가 제 차돈도 제시나도 제상도 디 삼을 약고치 땅와이나 저 컨디스 용구도 라 방고에 되게 참으라
So then when we know that like one religion wouldn't work, then when we talk about the practice, when we talk about practicing like our respective religions, then at the core of it we need to accept that we are all human beings. And not only that, on top of being human beings, we need to have to come to the understanding that as human beings we are all the same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. But now when you are practicing a religion or practicing this spiritual tradition, then we kind of have to work with this now. Why do we keep suffering even though we want happiness? And this is because because of the influence of the negative emotions that arises in us, we kind of confuse what is suffering and what is happiness.
네, 저처럼 가서기 다 기불에 대화래 되랑도 가시 전화 마시는 거 변조 그래서 뭐라 가시기 변조 쉬우요나 다 대화 참말하기 그래 땡거 가시기 땅을 미미 정보를 깨다 주고요 근데 샤나다야 참마 대화를 땡거 대야 말해라 변조 쉬우요니래 동이요래 미 깨다 주고 쉬우요니래 동이요라 아니 가시기 다 갖다 넘을 소소기 지난도 지 주다랑 소드는 쉬우요이나 다티 쉬우 대화 인서션 담을 상고르데 든지 집부 저당이 대화 차진진이 보이네 근데 집부 지금 다예요 그래서
So then when we kind of talk about happiness, and then we need to know that how we misconceive this happiness, how we have such wrong conceptions of happiness. When we talk about fame, prestige, money, or wealth, then some people kind of associate happiness with this kind of things. And then some people also associate happiness with like youth and a good body. So these are like very mistaken conceptions of happiness. That's all.
다 대화래디 지단기 때도 우치 시어이너와 수수고 셈나로 주냐 삼당당시라 삼 대화다 대 동일에 내가 좀 마치 삼당당지를 라리도 라 다시 지 강의도 요이네 강의 맞췄는데 그때 우르 상에는 그 강의 실에 처음 말 다 강의 주주질에 네가는 담부 강의 지요체 네가는 삼당당 오 나래 데 가르치는 요이나 미션발은 요문데 나래 가르치는 네가 수수기 남도 같은 딜레야 강의 처쳐고라 제자 직생비 시대래라고다 아니 대화도 마셔는 셈이 수셔라 저기 루드게 되어 라실로 두게 강이데 요데 이 마와체에 간 셈비야 딜레 렘바도 자셔라.
So then when we talk about this happiness, of course physically we have sufferings that we experience in this life, but then if you kind of think about it, happiness really depends on the way you think, and it is something that is created from inside. It is something that is created from the mind. And the one kind of example that I would like to give you is like even though if someone is suffering, if he's able to kind of think about it and approach it lightly, then that suffering is not so pronounced, and that suffering is not so pronounced for him. He doesn't suffer as much mentally as he is suffering physically. So this is the kind of like difference that we need to know.
다체장 아주 집변조로 쉬우요이나 나파게라 지기 톰나라 대화뇨아도일라나 근데시 단다바서 돈이요 말아 근데 깔레카고 싫어 네 단다바도 고뉴요 말에 스강이 대화뇨요요 말아 다이네 변조를 전부 유네스도 대사야 보도다 디 룸이야 보던데 대야데 수주고르마도 나래 대화지 골라는요요 말아 근데 이제 아주 대화디 말아 셈나 맞지.
So it is of course unheard of to someone say that I'm going to the market and I'm going to buy some happiness with my money. You can buy yourself some sort of comfort, but it's impossible for you to buy happiness with wealth or money. So with this, since it is unheard of such an instance wherein you can buy happiness with wealth, then we need to know then happiness has to come from some other place, and that place is from within yourself. You have to create your own happiness.
다 간들랜다 대화 뉴야면 대화 간데스라게 레라지로 봐 대화 뉴야는 민도 다 같이 올라나 다 대화 된 간도 같이 올라나 기준이 있어서 당 간도 미치를 끼어니 지내 아니 간도 로데다 진짜 kalwagi ngochaya da tene chena ngazu bit kor kashachi madine gi ngochaya ngozu gora ngazu rode gor tene ta michigla pha peshawaina nimachi ne chutun yi tsashi ro ta shogi lambani chini suzugi dunghe moye gi judu la sam tan ra di maje ya dewa moye gi judu tsu go ya ro ani suzugi ta ni khola kare yimate suzu ngoshi bai nare ani topoto mai muri kare ne cheba tsawani gi mate san zamni mi sama nyam de de gora 근데 이제 안 되게 정말 템보 참부쳐야 돼 백해심으로 내가 중서직 되는 책도 수수변 비냐다 파마틸면에 수수틸 가리요인 도줄 아니 자부 템보서 하나 야 심벌이 디직레도 알아 디직데
So then, as human beings, since the day that from the moment that we are born, without even stopping for 1 second, we already start to age, moment by moment. It's unstopping, this aging process. So then, as human beings, if this aging process doesn't even stop for 1 second, then we have only 24 hours in a day. And when you kind of wake up in the morning, the question arises: then how do you create this happiness? How do you attain this happiness that we are talking about? Then, since in the only 24 hours that we have in a day, when you wake up, you need to kind of contemplate and think about what are the causes of my suffering, what are the causes of my happiness. And then if you are kind of able to contemplate and reflect on these questions, then as you stay in a society or a community as human being, and especially in this modern world where everything is so interdependent and interconnected, it is important to accept this interconnectedness and interdependence, and then kind of think about these two questions. What are the causes of my suffering, and what are the causes of my happiness? In this kind of question, then you will find an answer in how to approach your community, your group of friends or family. Lasso.
Tena lekado chashi mabu chera nga di chu mabu chipen chashi pe mo shawe na pe nima chi le pe shan la orda mi se kanza chi bara mi se chi le nima chi na lo la chana pe lega mabu chi panga di shan di ma cha di ma lu di ani konda do la pe ka ngi themura su su gi dai chue ne bo do changa ten de chi di tu ne di ba ma tu ne sande me ba di zo ke pe ke chambara a takaran chi cha wa che go la na di matsa ne ani sembal kangi te da ani nimachi gi ni sum ma pochen ani sembal kangi te ani zamzam kindaro chai mi ga da tende mo yin bechi sembal lele che mi tsanza che ra machik na lo cha go mara tende lele che chik de ya chachin chik shide mu ya de tende ching sar ngara samatra.
So with this kind of like question that you pose yourself, then it will have an effect on how you deal with your immediate surrounding. Maybe with this kind of practice, then you are able to kind of achieve some sort of harmony within your immediate circle or community. And then another aspect of the modern life is invariably this ambition that is driven by greed, that causes so much instability in our life. So now, without talking about this whole life, since we are talking about this 24-hour in a day that we have, then since invariably we are kind of all of us in this modern life invariably are kind of ambitious, and this ambition is invariably, of course, driven by greed. Then with this kind of ambition, then all of us we become almost like workaholics in some sense of the word, and then we become we plan so much in one day. We plan so much like things to do in one day, and if we are not able to finish or achieve this tasks or things to do in a day, then we have some sort of instability or some sort of disquiet in our life. So one way of approaching this kind of instability in life is the practice of contentment, to not to be so driven by it's important to be ambitious, but your ambition should not be driven by greed all the time.
Chidi da susuginya nyega ni tawa te kana ila jora ta ngazo mi inza chuzo chuzo de ora chuzo ne minyam de lega chura chuzo de ba chibu inla na fashion na mando ya chik 파스 뜬에 되게 참으라. 당한 저기 나 쳐도라 땡들래 시월 파스 참아 땡고라. 미치 찌부진 같이 부진이라나 내 도요 말라. 때문에 나로 이제는 얘기 들어도 좀 미스는 수주를 테이블에 참아 밀 땡들 단다 데세게 컴바이너래 나랑 일럽존도 좀 내게 남바들 라이래 다다 나라 코야도 직 저다 땡디스 되질 페샤와이나 아주 미치 찌부진 나라나 제 도바지 깔 커버라. 근데 이선 잠자 나라 라이기 되버도 치고 일하냐 티슈 치무셔냐 내가 셈발아 아니 강이리라. 디만두.
Then another aspect of the modern life is this like concept of I'm a self-made man. with this, you have a very self-centered attitude in yourself. And then with this kind of like attitude that I'm a self-made man, and then this self-centered attitude is so strong in such a person, wherein he's not able to kind of listen to other people's opinion or perspective. And to then kind of think about it, how do we counter such a self-centered attitude and such an attitude? Then one example that a personal example that I would give is like kind of think about like you are not so self-sufficient. Even if you take the example of the clothes that you are wearing, it was not made by you. It's made by somebody else. Even the education that you have received, of which you are so proud of, it wouldn't have been possible without someone else teaching you. So with this kind of logical reasoning that you apply to yourself, you will be able to kind of counter this self-centered attitude.
그래서 가서 가디는 수수기 다 제마기 때문에 용고들아 수수면서 좀 거예로들이 나라라 이 라데나 아니 양 시초는 템보메 왔잖아요. 심벌 시대마와 시기 딘데지 차게라.
So of course such a self-centered attitude of course creates a problem not just for the person with such a self-centered attitude. It creates a problem in the community that he lives in. So this kind of these examples that I've given of the aspects of the modern life that creates disturbance and like suffering, these are addressed in the text that we are about to study.
아니 추일에 드는 어서 샘디 가르도 샘두어들 봐 가르서 야들 봐 쥐고라라 조아 간다 니마치를 니 이밀에 뉘 컨데스 장에 치츠부 컨데스 라샤 직계 시라인 날에 간지 돈으라 밀 뉘비 려가 가르치샤 제와디 하고는 수수 바바 빠야다 제메 하고는 수수 가와고야 내군에 약고 치샬는지라 수수기야 가와고 근데 제베 수수 따지 제일 뺏기시고 그러나 남아도 매라데나 아니 디요요 아니 추일에는 인지민지기 곰도 저 데모데 치고 말아라 니레니레기 수수기 아니 로든 좋았다야 돼 냐마 두어이 뭐 하고는 가지 사고다 사도 섬 되셔서 가린 수수 하고는 가디 제엠도스 다른가 야가지 치고 되면 소소선 좋았다야 그래 시소나로 가서 니마니마 도라 인지민지 추제불라 곰바타 산데 아니 지 덴로지가 데미좀 곰제 치고 말아라.
So since now we are talking about a Buddhist scripture, and then we had a somewhat detailed explanation of what the Dharma means in the Buddhist sense of the word. Then, and herein we discuss that the Dharma means to transform. And then, how do you transform then? This is the question that naturally arises. So then by like reciting some mantra or some prayers, or then like doing some meditation, and then like being in a temple or a monastery or a nunnery, this would not really be the meaning of like transforming yourself. Transforming yourself starts, of course, with yourself, and then one kind of example that I would like, simple example of transforming yourself, since we are still talking about the 24 hours that we have in a day, would be to kind of think about, like at the end of each day, to think about like, have I inflicted any harm to someone? To kind of take that inventory of your activity in a day in this manner. So if you are able to do this daily, then it would serve as a basis for you to transform yourself.
아니 잠잠도 수소나로 라가치인도 다처럼서 레가지 저타도이나 레레 군도이나 메도 메냠도 도라 디두가나 만디워도 디스 컨트롤라인도 디네 중소나 람산바 짱마 수에도 베키심들라 그 짱마도 가는 소는 수수는 노유나레 노미나레 본다스 안데 주나 야고차이도 다니 이제기 고온다 말아 파쇼 말아 추쇼 말아 아니 군진 치드나 디수수 볼네와 수로고도 타르니도 디차이도 고온다 키싱게 디네시나 노이나 아니 치디마소나 고온다라나 파쇼에 미드 사나타이라 디시네 참보차이라 안디야 수수를 군진 미바이나 참마 참분 잡고 템보이나 심벌 시딜리라 디니체 베키시모스라.
So then I'm sure that many of you work in the environment of a company or an office. So then, simple things that we can do to create harmony and like happiness for ourselves in our workspace would be to always try to resolve any conflict not to like hold on to resentment. So for example, if you are in some sort of conflict with someone, to be able to say sorry even though it's not your fault, just to say sorry for the misunderstanding, this creates the ground to resolve the conflict. If both of you are not willing to even like give 1 inch to each other, then there of course there's no chance for this conflict to resolve. So and then both of you will keep holding onto this resentment, which is like a poison for both of you. So this is why I say it is important to say sorry even though you haven't made a mistake in such a situation.
수수 공생슈에 이날에 야보체와라 투지체라 투에로라 다스제 셴바드 남주대이나 가시마도 국가인구스도 라토마라 당아주 밀레 통마이 베긴 수수남체주요레 디게 미스수도 첨부도 투에 판데서오데 아니 단다 투체라로다 아니 공달라야로다라 근데 요로도 사마페지 당데 디양아주기 대화웨기 직 차진시 차기도 이내 인지빈이 때문에 나로다 데데 요마데 수수기다 디양 페지 당웨나 대화기 주로 체다.
So basically, all I'm saying is like you have to use your innate human abilities and the human capacity that we are blessed with. So without even like talking about the text or the Dharma practice that we kind of have to study now, it's a simple point. Since we are blessed with speech, animals are not blessed with speech. We are blessed with speech. We are able to communicate our feelings. We are able to talk to each other verbally. But even though animals are not able to talk or speak, they somehow imitate or they somehow like use their body language to convey like this sorry and thank yous. But since we are blessed with speech as human beings, then to use this innate like human ability that we have to resolve the conflicts, to create the seeds of happiness for ourselves. So sorry, thank you. These are like gifts of the human speech that we need to use rather than just like ignoring them.
Teacher, anjing nalo ni ang tu langgal tu kau tu inare gengguru tu inare min nebaru tu inare tu jual robot cie peke jamudara. Susu ege gengu caya neba caya na cuma susu ni inare robot cie pujan tu robot cie tu marara. Ne ande cie ina ti susu nalo mici gici ni gici sum cie na di ya bodoh. Susu koran kali jual tangga ge di yang caci cakora. Dia kan lana katur tanda karsi dia nanti di dewa jusa gici jiro. Cipen ciru lagi.
Then another issue that I would like to address, which kind of ties into like our society as a whole, maybe it might sound like a silly example, but then I really encourage you to kind of, when you are walking in the street, when you kind of see some elder people, like old people walking, then to kind of like go out of your way to help these people with their like small talks or maybe like just crossing the road, because even though it might sound silly, it serves as an example for us as human beings, for other human beings, for us as a society. And with this kind of small deeds, then it kind of sows the seed for happiness as a community or as a society.
Jadi tanda kanzi tuar tishajudo, dah kiura kanzi miudo, miudinge testes toko shera, tiga lagi ye ane cik pedo tang ane yamdo ganama kali la dari masana ko sanila shorwa, ane tene bezu shugi insra, tak kona ge tanda cik cengeng tosha ro sonda, tak cengeng tosha la ne karlo na ngazu cik kange ro cik teri galarwa, kange de la kange mazu, tena tang bedo ro shawa ina ro, cira bedo jile pesha na didra. Pena ngazu pyola ina tanda ngazu ji yami gi zinzu chene pyode ane pyosa shora, pyosa shora de ina ya ta nya jaga lumba la ngazu jaga papi nandu ne ngazu ke kechenpo ji tsugo yore ani ngazu ke nambe ki chue de pyobe ki nangshu de jaga nama jumsa ki shi ji tsugo ra tende inza ani pyola kangi tengu diga la ani jaga la ngazu jebcho le wara jebcho se de jaga cha wara jaga la ngazu ki jidangi gege de geru gindu shi shubuchi yorwa chipu chuju ina nga tangpo jaga de la wara ngazu pyola yode ra tende ki tsona ji yore tende zila le ne ani cho chi nga ngazu la susu ki lumba sho pama la ka pingya de kate ra 다 쟁이 버로 이내 조상라디가 자갈lumba le ne ani 고세 신호가 아니 자가 신호 가된다 타나가졸라 데서 사자다 공부되는 때로 근데 때네 아니 추기 때네 공부 망부 잡 추지 리스마지베 공부 망부 요래 때네 로조 망부지 때네 러발니 다시 망부지 되는 거래 다 단대기 차라에나 지 페바장도 마세베 히말라야 나래 자가이 나래 아니 시제 유득하게 아니 다시 망부지 로조세 거의 되네실래 봐 대 쟁이 바디 가르라나 수수기 라사라유레 데마토로 쳐 저도 가르라나야 메뉴 버실래 거래야 제급 데 아버지래네 나 취체데 근데 그거 질라라 walten dene jila shagora susu ya zamza chen yamba ji ne dilaya ya dosu chi yoro dene jila pe shagora stra
So I have listed down like all the expectations that you have shared with me in my notebook, and I hope to address them, all of them, as we study the text. And if not today, definitely tomorrow I will address each of these expectations, and then kind of generally when you shared your expectations with me, all of you had this fascination with the title, Transforming Suffering into Happiness. And so then I would like to kind of address the incident or the event that kind of put you and us together. And this would be a very good example of the title, Transforming Suffering into Happiness. So for example, as Tibetans, in 1959 when the Chinese invaded Tibet, we lost our land. And that is not only did we lose our land, we lost a lot of our countrymen, like 1 million of them. And so then that is a great scale of human suffering. But we were able to transform this great suffering by coming into exile. Even though we lost our land, we were able to transform this suffering into an opportunity for ourselves. So you and us, we are in this we are in this place together because of this incident. But we are able to transform this great tragedy into an opportunity for ourselves. Because even though we lost our land in Tibet, by coming into exile, we are able to establish these monastic institutions that are able to help a lot of people, and we are able to preserve this ancient Buddhist tradition and preserve our own culture too. Also.
Tata chengi to shala diche ani kaji kalana tan mini kalana dungi di dewala jitu ala ista ta dungi dewala jilala dungi jimu deba de namsa ngamso phete wana se dewala te tin de chetu e chiyo marwa di samata ta dungi ji yoba ine dungi dila da dungi jimu de na da tida ozre di mayu na ozre la ista di khatu ngamso dewa te ni no jorna pena mishigi ta pena marini kamba laparo chi chawa ina ro o takune nga lapa chawado ozresra dile nga ji kamba do zubo khansa che ma jena ozre samero tinde samu digala chukko dunye de ba simba di maju no ozre sam digala dunye de pa dewar ju zo shekda ati ngadi lapa chanda ozre nga zubo khansa chi ma jena ozre samede na susu ga dunye dile khatu na this guyang do tra samtana tin na je nga ju zo na lo la yora ta ngale duaj ngal choj mu sa simba na lo la tin kangi thide jiro tigla mi simba choj tar alenga dilata nga ozre sel ra so so la na yu dunge ro jena pen nga ngoro shu na gena dingi ngona da ozre mi khashi pe so po khansan da do sra tin ro jil ta nga ozre sa samay digi ko ta gi dunge di so so dunge mi simba gi dunge chaj to na mi yo char ra te dunge dewala jila chi ko edu chidang gi sa sai na ni mo lo jong de na le ra ne ta da khatu khoran su gi dunge di karse dewala jueros na gro o din de shre.
So then so with this fascination in the title, I'm sure you have this question, how do we transform suffering into happiness? So then I would like to address directly that you cannot transform a suffering into happiness by just it's not like prescribing a medicine for your headache. If you eat something immediately, if you take that particular medicine immediately, your headache disappears. It's not something like that. There needs to be some effort from your side to kind of cultivate these practices in yourself. But to kind of like address it directly, one way to transform your suffering into happiness, not directly transform your happiness into suffering, is to kind of have a wider perspective, to kind of know how to count your blessings. This is one way of mitigating the suffering mentally, because the one example that I would like to give you is like if someone breaks his hand, then like immediately if he just thinks about like the fact that he broke his hand, then he's just gonna keep like suffering mentally, like he'll be like, I broke my hand. And so, but if he's able to think in this manner, like at least I didn't break both of my hands, at least I didn't break my leg, then you kind of in such an instant, then you are able to kind of have a wider perspective of the situation and kind of count your blessings before, like, you know, always focusing on your like small instance of suffering. That's it.
다다기 동네 문진 당라지도 동네 문진 신네 세상에서 남배기 쉬운나라야 동네들 주로 동네체 차가지기 동네기 동네 순샤라 순샤도가 다만도 동네기 동네를 가르쳐서 나가서 배는 지금 버릇이나요 가나야 이제 깜바로시 나와 봐 동네지 이해도 가나야 동네지 먼저 루이 돌아온 잠자 가도네도 어디네들은 동네기 동네를 내가 좀 문진 두고라 그래서 지금 되고 말데 동네들 가니 시죠 다른 주로 동네를 간다줘라 나가서 주로 동네를 되면 안서 담고 대화를 소고래 갈리갈리 파디 롱체체체체냐 동네주로 봐 이 간다줘라 샤워를 나면 안서 남시 차오지를 되어 있다 배는 차오시고치 되어라 차오시는 롱코 땅와이나 다 대화를 소고 봐 알레다 다기 동네의 민두다 롱코디게 배 시부로즈 야 포차스네 야 롱코 땅땅땅땅 야 미드야 동네주로 자야 마타 봐 배는 양아서 쇼차되네 니만을 들어와 담은 니만들이 어찌보다 대화를 또 니만은 주주 신가 가대다야 내도만 인주도 봐 다 차바 되지기 동네라 등안에 가서 토르시스는 만남에 봐도 잡라이저라 다디 동네도 가서 건건제도 막 동네 바하마고 제선 디게 왕경 가서 콜라 코데라 텐디야라 주니다 다도 말한데 간다 가서 콜라 코나디 동네도 대화임레 상나 코데라 디질라 아니 레다 뉴모 바데 왕 레 마보사 근데 레뉴 왕경 가서 야네한테 콜라
So then one of the questions that was one of the questions that was posed when you shared your expectations with me was this question of how to identify suffering. So then in the Buddhist explanation of suffering, then suffering is kind of divided into three types of suffering. And the first two, as ordinary human beings, we are able to identify them as suffering. These are the suffering of change and suffering of suffering. Suffering of suffering will be like the physical suffering that we all will know, like it's suffering. And then suffering of change is like, let's take this example. In a hot weather, you want to stay under AC or you want to stay under a fan. And then when you stay under that fan for like a period of time, then after a while, then you start to feel cold. This is the suffering of change. And then the last type of suffering, the suffering of our conditioning. Herein, we are not able to identify this type of suffering as ordinary human beings. And this is the suffering that entraps us in samsara. This is the suffering that fools us into thinking it is happiness.
근데 세상에서 동네를 숨차고래 그냥 아주 다 남바기 돈 시와이는 사제 고마로 들어. 근데 이제 타바다 탄시처럼 맞는 아주 동네에 양세서 못 되더라. 남바메 바이네 제라 갈리갈리 엔데 레더라. 근데 인상 아주 일단 대샤 세상 팀도 뉴모도 손도 빵네 이 사제 고발라 소가 터투어이네 때도 되어. 봐. 인베도 포렌제 동네 미주지. 다나 아주 다 로딜 지고이네 심바지 보면 봐도 세토를 지고이네 세밀 두고는 도 아직 배텐데 되어지 않았다 요마라. 근데 인자 디 치는 아주 기타 추남바다 바지 아니 대차셔는 팀물라 소바 빠야다 라. 근데 라주기 뉴모도 빠니 아니 타마 타투고 되어도 되게 아주 담비주 쇼라.
So, of course, in the Buddhist path of practice, the ultimate aim, of course, is to attain this enlightenment or Buddhahood. And then, in the Buddhist sense of the word happiness, then happiness would be that ultimate happiness that a Buddha has. And what kind of happiness does the Buddha has? The kind of happiness that a Buddha has is this freedom from the influence of the negative emotions that are within us. So, if you kind of look at ourselves, our whole existence, it is sometimes kind of defined by suffering, kind of defined by the influence of these negative emotions. For example, even if someone is like happy in the early stages of his life, then we notice that in the later stages of life he is beset by suffering. Or even when we think about ourselves, if we are happy like in one part of the year, then we are unhappy in the other part of the year. And then if you even think about a day, if we are happy in the morning, then we are sad in the evening. If we are happy at one moment, we are sad at some other moment. So this suffering, this sadness, and this influence of the negative emotions would not leave our existence unless and until we find some ways to address the cause of our suffering, which are these negative emotions.
아니키 가르라서나 다기 미츠든 조고조로 로치 송셔라
라
미츠든 조고 라이프 조고조로 들어서 아니 대조바 공단으로 직시를 실더라 다 미츠든 조고 조로다 수수 기회 따로 지르다 그라 아니 강이 튀어 있는 지금 나와서 이마치 있는 그런 것도 그라 그치나 기우로 있는 아니 점수 조로 그라 어딘데로 지르했어 다 조바 공단들라는 그냥 강이로 지금 미 콘로로 나와이나 람서들 카톨레 마진라 이 럽도 중요해나 빼야고 중요해나 자원이 콜라디 레말로는 저거금도 야시로아 테마투나 테 사무탄 나라 노트르도 코랑이 노트르도 테 사무탄에 계셔서 저거금 단에 코랑이 실라도 다 저거금 단라에 지가르라나 tikkangido che ji mi khondor lawina lamsan midle phan juguma jojira susugi chen karerdo chichene dibal ani kona bonete siro khondor lango ye jijen chichene chen chunjujila ani chimbuso susugi namdo suene ya khondor lang siro susu khondor la ya dra susu taji che beki chim restaurant te zoba gonda ro chawara onde che.
So then did someone say that their life is passing by them like really fast? Did someone say that? Yeah, it was you? Oh.
No, I didn't say that.
You didn't say it? Who said it? You said it? Okay. So, if you feel like your life is passing you by so fast, then the way I think about it is like maybe like you are really happy in your life, because only when you are happy the time seems to pass so fast, right? Otherwise, like when you are in some sort of suffering, then time like it doesn't seem to pass at all. So if you are sick, then one day seems like such a long time. So that is just immediate thought that I had when you said your life is passing by so fast. But then to get back to your other point, which was how to like cultivate patience in yourself. So then in the Buddhist, of course, in the Buddhist practice, of course, the immediate thing that one needs to do is take a look at oneself. So in a moment of like anger, or in a moment of in an instance of conflict, first the most important thing is to refrain from immediately retaliating or reacting to a situation or a person, and to look at yourself first. This is the most important thing, to look at yourself first, and when you look at yourself, if you find that there is some fault from your own side, then of course it builds the basis for you to accept your mistake and say sorry to the person. But if you do not find some fault from yourself, then do not immediately put the whole blame on someone else. Then to kind of try to create the environment, or to kindly create the basis to address the issue, to address the misunderstanding, rather than immediately retaliating in anger to that person. So this is the way to immediately look at yourself, look at the emotions in you, look at your activity. This is the first way to practice patience or to cultivate patience in yourself. Thus.
네 치karlana lalen ta chera tabi na se lalen ta na lege sare ani semba lele chedan la da ta lalen ta la dinam be karlana na zo na chue na re chue kare na lama da da cheche na mo de sun sha ju do dige ya pu su yin no su su ta ya pu su yin yi bara wa du za ma la su su gi di ga ro thu de ta ra ro ma tu tu che be chen che te du lo ani lalen di ga la o nga di chi tu de du mu ta lalen ta la di ro ani 디지다 sembalule le digala kalona ta karine lega ine petela shujinra tinde dodi na so lule chag morwa nga lega disana di chodi sa chashi madana ra lule macha chi te nga du chashi madana ti chi chaura chi kya chi karine devine zamda lodu ya pollo ya te lule ji kashime nima khanza tapta dido ani chi kya nga du pebale lungla do diro ya na so dele do ani chi te mi so kejang de do tipo de na ya symbol lulu me chak chig ro chai do ran zam da phan mi nyam de ke she ji ja bu thang so ro da khari na chi khelo de ya ke cham do wa ani ta ti ne kam de go su su pe symbol ai chak chig cha na ji number ro de lulu de de do ne ne no ka ji she ga go na she ro lulu de ne de ne symbol lulu chai do so chak chig she ra me ma cha da 근데 내가 레펜도라 다 타투는데 수수야 나초 뭐네 상어야고 땅 심바디 마르버도 진주도나 흘려 차고라 근데 내가 가도 가도래 주에 패시라
So then one of the points raised one of the points raised was to how to practice so then how to practice really depends on yourself because the kind of the instructions or the path has been shown to us already and then it depends on your study of that path and now when you study the path or the instructions that are given to us by the Buddha himself or the later masters then it is very important that yourself as a student to kind of approach it with diligent effort and then also like your own reasoning because if that instruction appeals to you and is established in your mind on the groundings of reason, then you do not really need like other motivation because it is established in your mind that this is logical, this is reasonable for you, so I will put this into practice. And then it really depends on the practitioner himself. And it, of course, we have to know that there is no immediate fix. It takes sustained and diligent effort from the part of the practitioner to achieve results in the part of practice. And then another concern that was raised was this lack of calmness and this anxiety in the modern life. And this lack of calmness and anxiety in the modern life, I think really boils down to the way we isolate ourselves and the way we are lonely in this modern world. This is the reason why I think there is this lack of calmness and this anxiety in the modern society. Of course, for anxiety, when someone feels anxious, immediate fixes are available, like listening to something that suits your mind, like a music or some mantras that you play and then listen in your ear. For immediate purposes, this fixes the situation. But to address this anxiety, like in the long run, I think this is not really the way to address this anxiety. So to kind of have an acceptance of yourself as a human, being the same as other human beings, would kind of break that cycle of isolation you put yourself into. So it is very important to meditate on this kind of simple aspects first to combat these lack of calmness and anxiety in the modern society.
nangi dewala dra ta nangi dewala da ko su sam ta na de dra ta ta yi dik pejin ro sai pena dungi jina o dingala ngala dungi di ma do men to o de ne ma jo na na sing bit sam ta na dewa chire do ta ye ko tanung da ji sun shara tanung da digala ngam zam zam mis na lo la zam zo tanung de ya pur thong du da hashi bai gaya matana ra today to kare ni nyamba ra in show gaya matana chik hinchanga thongre de do chik gana gacho chu du du chu de mai ke te ji ko nyambore ni ra ya bo chuna o ta dison sa no ya chuna ta shu ji ma sena dunia ma so takaro de tu en ko nyamboro chawra de jilanga ta ko de samtra de chi tu na
semji dijila de la khanso re geshima
semgi de wala da semgi de soso ga ta samba de te lolo ro sha ni ra nang chi ge sangi singi ma je samba soso kare na pa lolo ro sha ti semgi de ra ba dai ngela ngo do sa ji di pe ji ma tu wa de mi do sam ngela ngo do sa ra samba lolo ro sha.
So then another question was this inner peace and inner happiness. How do we achieve this? Then in a calm environment, in a calm and conducive environment, inner peace and inner happiness is not something so hard to achieve. But the real challenge is in like when you face a very disturbing situation, how to maintain that inner peace and then in such a situation how to achieve like inner happiness. This kind of concern is a very like deep question, and then I think we will address this in the when we study the text in detail, and then it kind of also ties into the concern that was raised before in many aspects of the questions that I've answered. I think it ties into the same kind of mindset you need to have. And then when we talk about this inner balance was also raised, and then maintaining a balance. So in the Buddhist sense of the word, we do not really talk about balance, since we talk about equanimity, not being too happy when you have a situation wherein like not being too excited in your happiness, and then not being too miserable in your suffering. This kind of attitude of equanimity, is encouraged to be developed in Buddhism. Yes. So this attitude of equanimity is encouraged, and is one of the many qualities that are practiced, because it kind of combats these pronounced feelings of happiness and pronounced feelings of suffering. Yes.
nyong thong ta mi mambo la ta nga du nge mambo thong du la na phone samba pe jo do ta di ta nga zu le nga so number in le la sha gora ta ko jo de ne ko ji te ko bo ta ni ta ina nga number to na chi to la khala na ta chaw nga me le ga nga so so ge ni nyong go le ji sa sa ro ta nga zu du thong wo ta nga chi ki ro pa la so ba chi tu ne nga du che ro ta che ma tu na di ga na sem de shu che ne ko jo du nge nyang du la sem de che su som chi pe la khalo ma che ta che ra so so ge 동해 중화데 통소나 들러 로바 체투도는 제마도나 다 쇼쇼지 들러 선배진이 가도요. 봐. 근데 준주당로 치주라. 게테치스 연나는 들러 뭐가 지시스. 게테치스 메나는 들러 뭐가 지시스. 게테 조조자 요아이나 안 좋아 들러 뭐가 와도 세 동이 치고요. 뭐 조조저 초로 왔어. 게시 근데 저 땅마도 아이나 가들 아니 기페 동이 치고요. 쟤는 패도요 말았어. terus mereka cici cekar cici guys, nanti pe nanti tu juga di situ sana pe hendak cemil gua, di jaga ikut aja sih siapa lagi sendiri deh, setuju tu, nanti tu sana pe apa?
So then another thing that was shared was that in your workspace, in the environment that you work in, when you see like so many people are suffering, and then this brings in a sense of like a sense of pain in yourself too. So in such a situation, of course in the Buddhist way, it will be explained in terms of karma, since they have already like accumulated the causes and conditions to suffer by their previous activity or actions in a previous life. This is the karma that they have to suffer in this life. This is the kind of acceptance with suffering that a Buddhist would have. But then it's not necessary to approach it through this lens. We can approach it secularly by thinking in this way, like if you are able to help their situation or help them, then by all means do like your best to help them. But then the problem arises when you feel helpless, that you are not able to help this person in suffering, then do not worry so much, because the kind of attitude that's encouraged in your practice by one of the great later Indian masters, Shantideva, in his text Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, is a very simple like verse. He says that if something can be done, then why do you need to worry, right? But if something cannot be done, then why do you need to worry too? So this is the kind of attitude that you need to develop, and the kind of approach you need to take.
이 오늘 이 준주 시디페 펜도도랑 알아서나 땅한도도 있는 소소게 지 파마라서 총로는 강이 빼러 능이 전부라 이내다 지기 근데 중산은 땅가 뭐내 지미슈 땅 안데시나 펜도요 말 봐. 요 땅에 파마야 이제 레니요 말에 다 딜레 엔수 추로치 바텐데 샤라 봐. 계시지 딜레지 뭐 미추 땅라서 파마 중에는 되는데다 표는 왜 말에 봐. 요 땅에 메주라 계신 조아다에 왜 봐지는 저 뭐라 소바들이 저거인다. 디페 수술을 미친 나로래 삼탄에 펜도야 봐.
So this kind of like pit instruction that is given to us by this great master, I think it is a very valuable instruction, not just in this situation. Like we can apply this to all facets of our daily life when we are in like when we face suffering. So, for example, when I talk, to give you an example, if like your own mother passes away, then of course this is a great source of suffering for you, and then your immediate reaction could of course be to cry, then to kind of mourn her death. But then if you apply this pit instruction that is given by this great master Shantideva, of course for the first week or two, it makes sense for you to mourn it. To kind of to grieve for her, but then like to kind of hold on to this grief would not bring her back to life, right? Would not help you to come to terms with your grief. So to apply this kind of instruction to like all facets of your suffering, your life, is very important.
당주디 자잖아라 마음 통도 시 정신이 이런 마음으로 나서 패절는 거 당주 때디랑 아주 상만데 미에 돈이 마음 총사래 아주 한이 상만 미치다 되는 패도요 말 이래 치료지 아니 지만나야 더시 더선부디 이제라 해로 파스 땅 점이가 로파에 వచ్చే서 근데로 제도 문에 야버라 지만 아주 상만 땅 아주 파일러 총로 쓸러 총로 제거 미망보 제거 리레는 민뼈만 총사 근데 지랑 아주 주바찬제 무로 데미치 땅 되는 패도문다 딜레 딘데로 페나와 무슨무슨 강이 간데지 용어이나 제도 저땅도 땅마도 세르마지스라 어딘데 제베키시마스.
So another experience that we all lived through together was this, of course, this coronavirus pandemic. So in this pandemic, in the initial stages of it, when so many people passed away, then our reactions, of course, at that point was one of like sadness and one of great sadness. So in that moment, if you hold on to the fact that like there's so many people passed away, and then you keep crying about this people pass away, and just kind of fixate on that point, then it doesn't make sense. But as was evident in all the like service workers, the first responders to the situation, as is evident by their example, if you are able to do something, do it in that situation to help the situation. But if you are not able to do something, then do not like fixate on the fact that you are not able to do something. Bless you.
이제 아니 다시 창도 더 미니 사스라 이도가 가지.
더 상이죠.
상이죠. 아니 간다데 선생님 칼리카디 레스라. 근데 다니 하마도 상이 되는가.
So due to the constraints of time, for tonight we stop here, and there are like 2 points left that I needed to address, but we'll continue with it in the class tomorrow. And since you are all, I'm sure, are pretty tired today, we break for today and gather again tomorrow in the morning.
손이 저기 검제를 해서 프랑스 참아 데려오는 진디나 검제를 다. 한 많이도 안 빼줘요. 검제. 그러시나.
두 가지 지나 되기로 했어.
What's the name of the text we're gonna study? The text.
Which one?
She said that we will study a text.
This is the text.
Like a book?
No. The text. This verses. Do you have a copy?
Yes. But I thought that during these 5 days we will study the text, the teaching.
By the text we mean this. The teaching, the text, the instruction. 거의 배잘라나 독보도 지었습니다. You had something take in mind.
Yes.
이네 디페 디 고야 치부더라. 나 데브라모를 데딩가 둘러 사노타에 카이라 페 펜도 치부더라. 오늘 디.
So of course we have this general idea when we talk about text, something thick, but then this is a very concise and very deep, full of deep meaning. This short text.
Okay. 이제 아니.
Question?
Yes, I think so, but it's still, I can try to put it out, but I'm not sure that it will sound.
Then can we sleep on it and tomorrow we... Huh?
I mean, can I ask?
She had a question?
Yeah, go for it. She's like thinking, you said sleep on it, so she's gonna sleep on it. I have a question ready. So when she was explaining about the angles, I mean, in the workspace, or just wait now. First we have to look at ourselves, if we are at fault before blaming somebody else. But then my question is okay, if we reflect, is anger justified at all? I mean, would anger be justified then?
If you are not at fault, then
is there something called justified anger, or there's nothing like that?
the chivadins tagi minjingam chubashona thangbo lung madun susul tasra the nela de malung madun la yoras china ani lung ten chobegi nizuro de yongsigras ani mazo nung ten turin chore la de ji yonggi veres de ji yoras
생기 다 엔데도 미카시 지촌으로 지요 통주로 시킨 딱 버릇이니 지컬로 그들로 당년 점도 파듯이 라고에 책도 저가 가서 알았더리에 대테모 시방가 와차선스 다한테 맞아 디스파 야보진래 님이 유튜브 좀 말아 봐 사실 그냥 두주로 땅이다 두주 땅은 아니 그냥 남사 주고 맞아야지 다처럼 장가 방어 찾았다 근데 지주요 말은 콜라가 납자도 어때요네 야보다
So of course it really depends on the situation. And about your question, is there such a thing called justified anger? Of course, in a situation wherein you face constant intimidation, constant bullying, and then sort of like the modern examples of racism that we face, then in such a situation, of course, anger is justified. That doesn't mean anger is not justified all the time. It depends on the situation.
Dilemma, pala Quran pa the hero general chunga temani ko sumba chares tachana inde majela pa labja do jar ya ho.
So then one way of of course addressing such a situation is to, of course, as a practitioner you are encouraged to kind of practice tolerance in this situation. And when we say practice tolerance, not to retaliate, rather than forgiving or tolerating, the first practice you need to put into action is not to retaliate. And then first instance, second instance, third instance, fourth instance, by the fifth, as human beings we have our limits, and in such a situation still not to react in anger. That is the general instruction as a practitioner you are given. But then if you are not retaliating in anger, then what will you do? To try to make him understand that what he is doing is wrong. This is the way to approach it. Yes.
because the hamago did na tapas ton chido to ko ha ko yo ba ji pha sona tena di go ra.
So some people, like when you don't retaliate or when you don't react, they feel like they can do it to you all the time. So in such a situation, it's important to let the other person know that I know like what you are doing to me and I do not like it. This is the way to approach such a situation. Question?
I can try and maybe you can help me. Please hold on. So, the thinking and the emotion. Sometimes I feel they don't like go at the same, they don't have the same rhythm, let's say. Even though they can have like, I feel they can have like, the mind can have a strategy. Like an emotion arises, because sometimes it's the mind who makes arising the emotion, but sometimes the emotion and the thought come. And I feel the strategy sometimes to the emotion come, the mind says, yes, it's because this is this, and try to get the emotion. But I feel like when doing that is kind of fooling myself. Because this part of emotion didn't really process, so it comes back. And it's, I would say, all the new find the balance.
Find the balance.
Listening and going through the emotion.
Yes. Yes?
Yes.
You still have more questions?
No,
Yeah? I'll translate this first, yeah? Morangi Chiwado Dikare Dulana Sim da Sorwala Jura. Sim like the Konzo in a lot of Shaimuda. Ni Lota Sorwala, the emotion like that. Samsam ni loda tsowala edila ni samnutang du zambayara. Samsam lodi gi pha tsowala nim thu yodochi. Ra. Ni samsam yang tsowadi shu chukna yang lodi medewa chayira. Lo chukyo ro chayira. Semba chukyo ro. Kene chagi dus. Ndi shedi zambada chigi chigi pha nemya thabji chigyo ras. Dina na nganzo namgyu jirdang gi ni lamden rodi sem gi pha tsowadi nim thuwa gore la goras. Di nim du zamba 소와 냄나요라 소와디다 룽사나 룽 파차상와직 사샤나 룽 조가로 차에도 왔으라 이니 룽 차상와지 마사 니 셈기 냄나 코 농로라 코디라스 지네 니 당달룽 마사네 지네 냄샤게 소와디 룽디야 신달로 되는 거라스 제산다 디 찬용보로지 간데서 그랬어
다 코나기 근데 콘로치 싸우라 다 미질레스 콘로사 남자 코로 봤다 투나 가르시에는 성화 시키는 그 가도도 그 나서 드라스도 챙이라 그러나 지강이도 가르 라와라이나 똑바로 그래는 봐 당수상 요르데 지지는 델랭이가 차샤라 다 그러나 미질레 주버셔는 그 가르 두루두슬라라 다서비 파기디 비디야 콜라 스마마치 밤모부즈라 그 파카가 되게 말아 그걸 레지부 니에 되게 말아 설라그라 근데 파 메바디가나야 홍시주로 야 쳇쳇로 인가 봐 델레 즈버 검토에는 많이 갈리갈리 temper 봐 제주나
So I understand your concern and I understand this dilemma, but then we need to kind of think about the consequences of our emotions when we express them. And then why is it important for the mind to control the emotion? Because of course we feel like if we are able to express our anger fully, then it just ends, right, for us. But then taking the example of anger, if we are able to express our anger to that person who is the object of our anger, and we are like, okay, I'm no longer angry, but for that person, it might make the situation worse. He might retaliate, right? This is the consequence of our emotion. And then that's like adding fuel to fire, right? So this is why rather than feeling like there is some sort of residue of anger, of course you feel like there's some residue of the emotional stress left inside you when you try to control them, it is important to have like a genuine practice of tolerance and forbearance. This is the sign that when you have like this residue, something left, of resentment left when you're not able to express your anger fully. This is the sign that the practice, it's not so impactful at that moment. Plus.
Teacher, Chikina done the Kundu Lasa Mijido. Ra. Kundu Lang la Kundu in the Che Yomata. Ra. Yomarin, the Zamzaneko Chibo Chawara. In the Tawin Yomare. Inia, Tiletan Kundu Lang middle. The number shoe number doing days for a car in the Ra. Till a student the Chashadan Kutu Karachi, he yammed the Marma Madora. There's what Harim Shai. Could Chesa Suzuki. Kangi Zoni the Kundu Zoni Michura. Capilla Tarin there. Kitchemurisra. Naja Humor and Kalikali Yamasuji Jirura. But Tiam the Dor and Katariji Sanija and Kungani Matabachi Laudute and Zabokomat and Tubashura. There is also the mid Duja in Bahakon, Tarin's Day. Three Tamansida, Tubajamowachi.
So then when we talk about this balance between our mind and emotions, then it is very important to like differentiate and to identify the emotions themselves. So for example, when we talk about the emotion of anger, and then the emotion of hatred, then the emotion of attachment, desire, these kind of emotions, if you think about it, now like not to talk about the other examples, just anger, then we need to know that this particular emotion has no positive qualities at all. It doesn't really help us in the long run, ultimately. So we need to know that and accept that first before we kind of think about this achieving this balance between mind and emotion. And then in a situation wherein like you feel this anger, and then the person with whom you're angry, and then if you're not able to like control your anger, then the best advice and the best decision you can do is to kind of put a distance between yourself and that person, right? Not to be near that person. This is the immediate like decision you can take. That's all.
Penang rasa lemah je, ni pecahora, lemah je orang. Mat kalau yang jangan bazu jadi mat cer dulu, mat tu dulu saya kap saya sana, terus saya joy, terus.
But what about like those emotion repressed that, for example, it's a situation, you would say anger, but the mind decides like, oh, it's okay, and doing all the process, let's say. And but the fact to not but after it's stuck in the body, after you have like liver problem, and you, for example, me, I realize that I have a problem in my liver. I'm not someone who shout, I'm not angry, most of the time I'm quite empathic, I understand those aside, but I know that it's all the anger that I stop. And so all to manage this, all to do we have like to sit with the burning anger to get through it, to allow it to pass? You know what I mean?
Tak, kumo ini lah itu. Lung lah jora, orang gergi tanda nazar dawa sera, di chimba nazar liver, chimba nazar dawa sera, chimba nazar dela cuda bazi jene cuda cimindu sera. Ini orang gergi soal akar sorgi dulu na. Namju ne ngam milung saun de mes, ke chembo jab chichit ni de mes ra. Ine ngarangi kha bugi esra, ngai lung ma tuen zan ra, lung mangbo ji ngai na la tha deers. Ande digil ha waking in mo chimba de la tuen shi uchi gi eres na ha bugi. Chena de net tuji la ngai lung changwa ma tuen na ani chimba de thai do yongi ai nas ta de do.
Misul da.
Lung then when you want to like take out all this anger outside of yourself, right? This, then who would be the object of your anger?
I don't even know.
How many was?
I don't know.
It's repressed.
Huh?
It's repressed in the body.
Can I?
Maybe or yeah, maybe it's like I'm like. Is it a way? Because I feel if I reject this emotion, I kind of feel a block, and so I'm not really fully free. I don't know what to expect.
Can I do you want to chimba na tsuju samdera? Simba kangi jora muni. Kangi di simba machero ane lung sauru cha sira. Muni da. Di kena ke kisi chimba na tsuju juye ngala kisangi ma ande dulu sa.
Chimba mardi chimba.
Chimba ngala ande ro tatala. Ani ngala ande ro shat se ani jel taji che mindu loida. 수디 수 요하고는 야시라 나도 요하 마고는 좀 뭐지 오라 요하고는 디지털 가르쳐 해 가르쳐고도 아니 지당이 챔버도들랑 또 공존하고도 이거라 쉬고 되더네 챔버 내고르라 라 들면 해사야라 라 이미 루트에 다 되는데 소고지 라 엄치는 하고도 미니어에 챔버도 내가 또 지냐 수에 펜토르다 라 지당 강이 심바딜라 dim kalau kangi di ngaten sa mara na de ingi mara thing mara ba sul te or te so na le ra ba digi
ba shundem ne shayo ra mane
mara na do sam sem mala kangi joro te man sa di thaya thamse ka tang udi tang ra di gala na sa ji yu la di gala sam shu cham ma da je di pa thaya thamse ka tang khala kare ne du tum kare ne du ti mu to pa ai thamse tang ne chine ya je me me ji la lu te ne te thaya ji
So then when you talk about this problem, this physical problem, the liver problem that you have, and then you feel like this repressed anger having an effect on like worsening the situation, then I have never really heard of, up until now I've never heard of someone who got cured, some physical illness being cured because they are able to express all this repressed rage. If you are able to express this repressed rage, then physically you are cured. I still haven't heard such a story, or so I'm yet to like hear of such an instance. But then, like from my own experience, I had a problem with my kidney too, and so in this situation. The way I approach it was like initially, the way I approach it is to kind of not to focus on the illness, right? Focus on trying to get better, right? This is my approach, most importantly. Even though I had a kidney problem, I didn't stop like doing my prostrations. And then after a while, when I did a re-checkup, then like I no longer had the dore. The chamanala. So then the disease was even though in the initial checkup they said like I had that disease in the kidney, but when I didn't really focus on the illness itself, I was so focused on getting better that I continued with my like daily prostrations and my practice. Then after a while, when I went to a re-checkup, then like they said that I didn't have the disease in my kidney anymore. So then that is the kind of approach that I would encourage you to take too. You have this illness, this you have to accept, but do not focus too much on the illness itself. Try to focus on the ways to get better, because now we live in a modern world. There are medicines you can take to get better. There are procedures you can do to get better. Focus on these things, and then your mental state, of course, is very important for you to get better.
나살에 추지우만 미상물라 여라 나도 다시 심을 참을 나서지 여 디치디가 알아 나서디는 선데 제엠라 디치도 가르던 아니타 그래라.
So yes, physical illness is common for all of us as human beings. Either it's just a matter of like when and what. We all go through some sort of physical illness. And so to kind of accept that first, that as human beings we are bound to suffer some physical illness, and then focus on getting better, put more effort into getting better. Thus, so I think we overshot by like half an hour already. So we end this with the Sani Gomdi
Sani peji ani di leto mara. Shogi di chiran chuzi kaziredo
Jeba.
Tubane dumba bada meditation and prayer ledo. Jebala
Tubane dumba ledo.
Tuba dumba ledo. Dumba ne jebe breakfast ledo. Gubane ngas teaching ledo. Gubane chuba. Cheta tubane dumba bada ledo. Chiran dele muna di su gomjana kawajana ga shal kewa. Chita sani dele rumu tanga zani dele kashiya dele musa marasana su shala gomjana. Teacher. Pejmani ngani ani shambar leave.
So then tomorrow, according to the schedule that you have been given, there is a meditation and morning prayers at 6 to 7. But tomorrow there might be some painters coming along in the hall to paint on the Buddha. So meditation would not be possible as a group here. So just for tomorrow, only the first morning, I encourage you to try to meditate on your own, in your own respective rooms. But from day after, there will be an instructor and we will be able to do it here as a group. Yes. Jende yunguru es sani shoba.
진짜 컨셉 진짜 되게 계셔서 검저를 대도 내가 시티 늘이라 찬스 들리 안데 안데만 되고
If you want to do prayers, then of course you can come here and then you have the prayer book with you. You can do no group session tomorrow.
Okay.
Because the meditation would not be possible with them working, right? So for tomorrow, bear with us and try to do it in your own room. And the day after tomorrow, you will have an instructor and do it as a group together. So we end the session with a prayer.
Page number 30.
Page 30. 3030.